Hello, everyone. My name is Roopa Sunku, and I'm the Chief Evangelist at Touch a Life Foundation. Today, I bring to you a very, very inspirational and extremely enigmatic person by the name of Ajit Rangnekar. Hello, Ajit. Welcome to the show. And this is our show called Career Elevations, where we carve out some of the learnings from your success into our future generations' career paths or trajectories. So, thank you for joining me on this show today, Ajit.
Thank you, Rupa. Delighted to be here. And hello, everybody who is going to tune in and listen to this program.
Excellent, excellent. Let's start off with what are you currently doing and what has been keeping you occupied and busy for the last few years here today?
So, obviously, COVID has created such a big impact in everybody's lives, right? So, and especially in a country like ours, when there is such a big discrepancy between what a well off person can claim to have access to health and what a poor person can have, right? So that's the gap I want to bridge. In my dream, every citizen in this world must have access to reasonable amount of food and to good health. And I help and support startups. I run a not-for-profit which is funded by the Telangana and the central government both, which helps startups to fast track to market on socially important causes, which predominantly agriculture and health.
Fantastic, fantastic. Three sort of important pillars in everybody's life: health, financial stability, and food. So you're talking about all three avenues that kind of structure. So I can tell how emotional and passionate you are about three subjects that you're working to create the ecosystem to help people sustain and maintain and manage and grow into a comfort state with these three elements. So let me ask you, what is your educational background or where did your beginnings start with?
I began in what we used to call Bombay, now Mumbai. And pardon me if sometimes I flip into still saying it Bombay, it just shows my age and my. But that's where I grew up. I grew up in what I would call as a very poor family. So I went to a school which was not exactly known for its academic excellence, but there was a very strong culture in the family of academic excellence. So fortunately for me, I did well enough in school, but because my family was poor, we didn't really get any advice about what to do in career. So I just happened to be with some friends who said, "Hey, come on, we have to go and get forms." I said, "Forms for what?" This is for admission to IIT. I said, "What the hell is that now?" So I went, I got the forms. As luck would have it, I got into IIT, Bombay, and then realized that chemical engineering was not my cup of tea. So then at the first opportunity when I graduated, I jumped ship and joined the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, and it was anything but production, but I fell in love with finance and operations research.
Fantastic.
And I started my career as an operations researcher in a company called ACC. And that was the only career choice I've made in my life. Everything after that has been an accident. In 3 years, I did a lot. Then somebody said, "Would you do something else?" which was in finance. And I said, "Yes, I'd do that." Then for my sins, they said, "Now go and run a factory," which I hated. But I said, "Yes, I'll do that." Then somebody said, we have this great opportunity abroad. Will you go? So I spent 20 years in Hong Kong. And I worked for an Indian company first. And for 14 years, I worked with Pricewaterhouse in their consulting practice. I was the country head for their consulting practice, both in Hong Kong and Philippines. Then my wife and I decided to come back to India because our parents were getting old. So we came back, and again, I was pottering around doing some things when somebody said, "No, the ISB needs." Indian School of Business was just getting started then.
Mm-hmm.
They needed somebody, and I said, I'm really not looking for a job. I'm thinking, they said, no, come. And I fell in love again. I fell in love with ISB. I fell in love with the idea of building something, a world-class institution in India. And turn of the century, nobody gave us credit for ever bringing. Today, building world class in India is so easy, so obvious. So I fell in love again and I spent 14 years there. That's where my good friend Jay Chaudhary and we started the innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem in
Mm.
Hyderabad. And that's where I got my next love affair, which is that we must do something that is so socially impactful that it transforms the lives of millions and millions. To me, a unicorn is something that positively impacts the life of at least 10 million human beings. So
Wow.
those are the kind of unicorns that I want to help.
Amazing, amazing. Just kind of stepping through your journey this far, I was able to capture multiple elements. I love the word that you talk about, accident. I think it is accident, but you are actually falling or coming into those accidents because of the people that you're interacting with and your open mindedness to adventure. Try out something new. Some did not work, but you were willing to learn and keep growing. And the trajectory began to increase in potential in terms of cause. And that's just been so beautiful to listen to your story. So tell me, with all of this, obviously there were some inspirations in your life that made you or guided you through these principles or these paths. So, who or what were your inspirations, and what were some of the learnings that you had early on in your life?
So, I come from a very strong communist family. My parents were very, very staunch communists. And I have to say, while that's a rosy enough dream in your 20s, if you are going to be a communist in your 50s and 60s, you have to be a super optimist. I'm not. So while I was enamored with that philosophy when I was maybe 18 and 20, but what I learned from my parents was complete devotion to a cause, honesty, integrity, and complete, giving your life for others, for the betterment of others. And I'll be honest, I have not done that. I've looked after myself, I've looked after my family, but that one thing remains. My father, when I was 10, told me, don't chase after money, chase after something worthwhile. I
So
think
powerful.
that has had a huge impact on me. Speaking the truth. And there are so many people. My uncle, who actually, as a communist, had to go to jail because he refused to, and he could easily have, because the media actually gave him an option saying, look, we like you, and just change this statement. He says, no, I will not change. I know the risk and I'm willing to take the risk.
Mm,
And we learn from that standing up for what you believe in, whatever be the, if I'm not willing to pay the cost, it's no longer a principle. Then it's only a convenience, it's only a PR.
right,
So
right.
I have to be willing to, I think, and that's something. Even in, I was so lucky, I've led an amazingly lucky life. I've had one boss after another who have given me full freedom, and when I've made a mistake, stood by me and taken
Mm,
the blame. So you learn from that. I said, I will never sacrifice my subordinate because I was not sacrificed. Right? So you
absolutely.
learn. You learn. The other thing I learned was that, you know, we have a lot greater capability and capacity than we give ourselves credit for. And we get scared, right? So I started my career as an operations researcher, then went to finance, then moved to manufacturing, then moved to
Hmm.
services, then moved to consulting, then education, and now, entrepreneurship for nothing is connected to each other, nothing. And every time I put up my hand saying, hey, you know what, this is good and is worth doing, if there is nobody else, I'm willing to. And you
Right.
find that when you actually take on something good, the world conspires to help. Look at
Powerful.
TAL. Look at TAL. Look at Touch a Life Foundation. Everyone wants to help. Why? Because it's a great cause. So I think
Yes.
when we pursue careers that are great and not focused on just I, me, myself, and my money, then you get all the support.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think, again, let me just reiterate some of the key takeaways that I have written down for myself. One is I love the statement from your uncle and your father, rather, saying, don't chase after money, but go after opportunity. I think willingness to try and venture out and giving to others and making a difference to the unicorns, like you mentioned, and the large set of lives that you can impact is just another very, very powerful message. I think the other one that you talk about, and you called it accident on your first statement or your first narrative, and the second time you're saying, give yourselves the opportunity to look at what is coming your way, and it will come your way because you are doing good for the rest of the people around you and the ecosystem around you. So, very, very, very powerful messages at large. If I were to ask you, what is one thing you would change if you look back at yourself 10 years ago or even 20 years ago? Is there anything that you would change in your life or do something different to be able to come upon an end result that looks very different from where you are today?
No, I don't want to be particularly different from where I am, but I think I've had led a extremely blessed life, and the world has been really good to me. But I do think that sometimes what happens is that I certainly did, and I use this word love affair, right? I fell in love with ISB,
Mm-hmm.
and when you fall in love with ISB, you then neglect your own health, you neglect your family,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that balance is something I lost.
Mm-hmm.
And if I had to do it again, I would slightly change that balance. And I would do the same thing, but without getting so besotted.
Mm-hmm.
We do get besotted, but I think, and you can't just be, oh, okay, this is a 9 to 5 thing. It's not.
Right.
When you're passionate about something, it's not 9 to 5. But one has to take care of oneself and one's family. I think, somewhere in that balance is what I wish I did a little better.
Fantastic. If I were to ask you, was there any point in your life you felt stuck or held back to your highest potential in terms of performance? And if you were in that situation, how did you get yourself unstuck to be able to go to that next love affair or the path of happiness for you and your family?
Yeah, very, very often. Uh, and in fact, in my first job, I remember I was hardly a couple of months into the job, and I went to the director who had actually recruited me, saying, I'm quitting.
Mm.
But I just can't manage this person you have assigned me to. And I think he's, blah, blah, blah. And he told me something very interesting. He says, anybody can work under a good boss. If you're really good, learn to work under a difficult boss.
Hmm.
And that was to me the biggest learning in some ways of my career. So if and I do very often face challenges, right? You face it, and of course in a world, because the world is not there to do things because you want it. The
Right.
world does its own thing. You have to. So how do you learn to adapt? How do you learn to find out what is it that makes that problem go away? What will make that challenge disappear? And sometimes you have to change yourself. Sometimes you have to understand why it is that somebody is doing something and
Mhm.
adapt to it. Yeah, and sometimes you just accept that, maybe I set out for this. It was not. Fortunately, I've never stepped away from that problem. No, I've continued and I've persisted. Uh, at some stage, it does get. If you're reasonable about if my expectation is I want to be a billionaire in the next 13 days, and then that's a different issue.
Right.
But if my purpose is good, if I'm being honest about it, and if I'm really doing my best, not because that thing needs to be done and not because I'm trying to hurt somebody, at some stage people do.
That is so true. Very true. I think hard work, integrity, and patience almost to be able to work with the ecosystem around you and the environment around you and give it a chance is what you're saying.
And
That's fantastic.
keep adapting. I think,
Yeah.
see, very often our own concept of what needs to be done
Hmm.
may not necessarily, we don't have all the wisdom in the world. Other
Hmm.
people also have. So how do you listen? One thing we don't do too well is listening, and honest
Perfect.
listening. And especially the higher you climb in the organization, the less you listen.
They say people on the top don't have patience to listen and are lonely sometimes and do want to talk to people. So it is a marriage of those two aspects on the higher ranks. Okay. My last question to you today would be, who has been your personal inspiration? You've talked a lot about what your father and your uncle stood for and help you build your character path and character lane, a swim lane for yourself. But what are the external influences? You've also talked about Mr. J. Chowdhury also being able to help work with the same cause and go to fruition. Tell me, is there any other inspirations or any kind of a message you want to leave for our audience to think about while they are determining what their career paths are going to be or what their future should look like, or even have very big dreams that they need to think about in small steps or phases to be able to get to that achievement level that they desire to?
I think all inspiration, all motivation has to come from within.
Perfect.
Okay, it's what you want to do in life. And now, what you want to do in life gets influenced by your upbringing, by your
Mhm,
experiences, by your belief system, by everything you read, etc., etc.
mhm.
So, as much as I can, I try to still keep an open mind, and I try. My feeling is, and I've made this as a rule in life. Every encounter I have with anybody, I must learn something from them.
Beautiful.
And you do.
Mhm.
Sometimes, you sit in a meeting which is so bad. You say, okay, I better learn how not to do this same thing again. Right?
Amazing. Yes.
So I think one has to keep, and the inspirations change because this environment changes. So just stay open to influences, but stay true to your principles.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Those were just amazing golden words to remember. Think about your potential and what you believe in, like your belief system, as you said, and thrive in the changes and the adaptability that you need to fit in and get to the next level. Fantastic. Are there any other parting words that you'd like to share with our listeners?
My wife is tired of my saying this, that I wish I was 18 again. And I really believe I want to be 18 now because the world has so many opportunities. It's just an incredible time. Yeah, we can look at all the negatives and there are challenges, but those challenges exactly give us an opportunity to do something. And I have enormous faith and confidence in the year. So I would love to be a part of them, but please go out and enjoy your life to the fullest, doing something worthwhile. Good luck.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much for those beautiful last thoughts. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in and listening to us on Touch a Life's TAL Radio. And our show today was Career Elevations. I hope you were able to take away at least 1% of the beautiful thoughts, concepts, and ideas and narratives that Ajit has shared with us today. And hope that you also feel the same, that you are living in an age of opportunity and are able to achieve anything you want, as Ajit wants to go back to his 18th birthday and live life to its fullest. So thank you once again, and thank you.